Hello and welcome everyone. This is This Just In. I'm Justin and this is the new Microsoft Reactor show live from Cloud City, Seattle and London with Amy. And this is a new show. I'm really excited to share with you. Please share your comments in our chat window as well. But this is for our community, whether you're an entrepreneur, a developer, or just a passionate technologist. We're going to be talking about a whole range of different topics in this season, from sustainable software engineering to mixed reality to fusion development and everything in between. Just a reminder that this event is part of our code of conduct. Let me bring that up on the screen here. But basically, please be nice, but share your opinion. This is a show. It's really about audience participation. In fact, we're going to play a game a little bit later. Would you trust AI too? So log into your favorite platform and be sure that you can chat in the window of that. So moving back, I'd like to introduce Amy Boyd, our new guest speaker. And we're going to be talking about what's new in the ethical use of AI. Welcome, Amy.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on your episode of This Just In. Best name for a show ever. Just want to throw that one out there. I was like, oh my goodness, yes, this is the best. And yeah, really excited to be here, talk about ethical AI. Well, talk about it, but also discuss it. As you said, I think there's an element of there's always discussion with this topic, which is great.
Definitely. And Amy, you are a co-host of A Bit in AI with Hank and Amy. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about your show and your background in AI?
Yeah, of course. I actually, strangely enough, literally just came off a recording that we've done for the A Bit of AI show. So here are on Microsoft Learn. So if you go to ak.ms/learntv, you will find a show in the European time zone on Thursdays. We actually do a show called A Bit of AI. And A Bit of AI is an interesting one because it's quite conversational, a bit like this show. And we discuss interesting projects and interesting topics, but we also discuss the people behind them. So one of the reasons we created this show was myself and my co-host, Hank Bowman, who's also a cloud advocate here at Microsoft. We both kind of had the opportunity over the last few years to travel the world physically and virtually and have met so many different people in so many different roles with so many different backgrounds. And I think we suddenly realized actually we need to kind of debunk a bit of a myth here that the only job in AI is a data scientist, because it's absolutely not the case, or that data scientists only ever come from a mathematics background or something like that. And it's been fascinating. We're on season 2. We're actually coming to the end of season 2, but you can catch all of our stuff on demand. So if you want to see a bit more, try out an episode, go to abitofai.show as a URL, and you'll find all of our episodes there.
Super awesome. All else to say, honestly, I was inspired in part by your show to do this show. It's one of the reasons why this is our first episode at This Just In, is that I wanted to cover topics that I thought that the community would be interested in, and really bring a little bit more inspiration to our Microsoft Reactors, and maybe draw people in for people who want to learn more about topics like AI and such. So, no, super excited. Well, let's begin with an icebreaker. This is episode 1 after all. And so, Amy, I want to begin by asking you, where have you encountered useful AI in your career and in your everyday life?
Oh, useful AI. I mean, useful AI I always think is that one where you basically always see it. Or here we go. Was it one of our Microsoft research leads that used like a phrase that said like true AI should be completely like you won't naturally know it's there, sort of thing. It's almost like, really, really useful technology just hides in the background and kind of helps you out a little bit. And I always think that like it happens a lot. I want to kind of maybe change it slightly from useful to my passion area, which is I did quite a lot of bringing together sort of things that I'm really passionate about and AI, and kind of showing that AI doesn't always need to be something that's financial, or doesn't have to be risk assessments or flight delays or anything like that. And so I am a huge reality TV fan. Judge me how you wish. That's okay. I absolutely love it. But we had a show here in the UK called Love Island. It's been on for many years now, many summers of single people going on TV, becoming very famous very, very quickly. But one of the things I said was, I was looking at this series and I was like, there's a pattern here. There's a pattern in what makes the winners in some senses. And so I tried to go and prove that by using data to make interesting insights. But also I actually tried to predict the outcome of our 2019 series. And it's just one of those ones, it's a bit of fun when it comes to data. It's not going to change anyone's life or anything like that.
Oh, I think we might have lost Amy there. I'll give it just a second, see if the internet recovers a little bit. All right, let's see if we can give Amy a chance to restart her internet. I'll bridge on the question that Amy was talking about for myself, which is, where have you encountered useful AI in your career, in your personal life? I think for me, I'm a bit of a plant geek, a hiker, and I love nature. It's kind of my balance to being in technology all the time. In fact, my gardening and my hiking and stuff is pretty analog, but the one exception to that for AI was a magic moment when I encountered computer vision, and the idea that you could take a picture of a bark or a flower or a tree or a plant and then be able to identify it as a species, to learn if it was native, its growing region. And so whenever I was traveling, whether it be local or international in the past, I believe that was pre-pandemic a while ago, but I would take pictures of plants all the time, and I became just fascinated with the fact of how many things are non-native, things that I thought were native in a local area, but were in fact not. And so I learned just a tremendous amount just from that scenario of computer vision. And that's actually what led me to study the math around it as well. I'm not particularly great at arrays and all of the way that pixels, RGB, and how we compute it, but I was just fascinated by how that came about. So Amy, we lost you a little bit on the internet connection, but you were just talking about the reality TV show. So would you go ahead and repeat that one again? I think it's a super good story.
Of course, yeah, no problem. So yeah, my passion for reality TV came colliding with data science, and we're able to see kind of patterns in the things that we do, be that good or bad, but also being able to actually use those patterns or previous data to try and predict, even with very, very small data sets, which is always a risk, the outcome of these kinds of shows as well. I've been known to do this. I actually did this in my academic career as well. As one of my main dissertations, I tried to predict the outcome of the X Factor, which is a singing contest, if no one had kind of watched it in the past. And this kind of stuff is good fun. It's interesting. It's interesting to also share. So I shared some great blog posts that kind of showed how I did it. And it's really very basic. I haven't got, terabytes of data or anything like that. But actually, you can find insights in lots of different things and really trial out cool technologies.
Yeah, very, very cool. Yeah, and I think the other one for me was, if you all have seen just satellite imagery of deforestation over time, or the change in different green across the globe, fascinating data set to look at if you want to get more involved with AI as well. So there's really all sorts of things that you can do with AI. I think we have one person in the chat, Daniel, asked about an area of unethical use for AI. Well, I don't want to offer a value judgment of what is unethical or not. In fact, that's actually kind of the theme of this episode, is that probably depend, and it's deeply contextual and differs across different people. And in fact, that's why we're going to play a game about this. Would you trust AI to? Because I don't want to get to the punchline too much, but I have a feeling it's going to differ across people. And so, but first I'll just kind of offer like my perspective on it. And this really is mine. Everyone kind of thinks about AI a little differently. But if I could distill what I have learned about AI, it's really about building trust and building utility, that is value to humans. It's not about the robots. It's not about the data. Those are incredibly important manifestations or inputs into AI, but it is fundamentally about trust. And in building AI does require data, as Amy mentioned as well, which means that data can have unintended consequences. It can reinforce bias. It can be difficult to determine how you process or clean that data. And it can be subject to the bias of the underlying people that are building it, which is why we need all people to participate in AI and such. But let's warm our brains up a little bit more on this. Again, this is audience participation, so please get your chat window ready. So I'm going to read out, would you trust AI to? And then go ahead and type it in the chat window. And Amy, please feel free to respond as well as your guest. So would you trust AI to log into your phone with your face?
So I would say yes, I do that all the time. So I use Face ID on my phone. I use Face ID on my laptop as well to log in every single day. I like to think for me, it's probably safer than using the same passwords over and over and over again in all your different accounts. Also, I am not a security expert. I try to always have good security practices. And so actually anything where someone says, actually, this passwordless movement we're kind of moving in, I welcome that personally in some senses, because if it can protect me more, I would like that expertise in some senses. So for me, it's a yes on that one. What about you, Justin?
Definitely. I think we're starting pretty easy here. Pretty common scenario. You do have to trust that your image is stored by the provider, but I think if that data is secured and you can trust that particular device, I would be okay with that personally. Yeah. All right. What about automatically remove malware from your phone?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to go down the same route. Like, I think it's a form of protection. It's something that a lot of large technology companies have a lot of data on from across the world. They see these new types of attacks and they are able to respond to them very, very quickly. Whereas myself, just trying to get on with my day job sort of thing, maybe I won't know about, the latest very, very clever attack. So yeah, for me, I think anything that can help support me in that sense. Also, I believe I already have that available to me, and so far have been comfortable with that.
Nice. All right, let's start getting a little bit more gray area, shall we say? How about select pictures from your photo album, and specifically, what if it automatically then posts them to social media?
Oh.
Oh, I think Amy was so shocked thinking about that one that we had an internet connection. So Daniel says no. That one feels perhaps a little bit on that edge. The device is accessing your camera, making that information public. I don't know, maybe if you set certain considerations or parameters around it, or you fenced only these pictures in this area here, this folder or this time or something like that as well. But let's keep going. I think we got Amy back.
I'm so sorry.
No,
I'm not sure.
I get a chance to respond too, so it's all good. So let's do one I think that you will appreciate, which is help you plan your fall wardrobe.
Yeah, yes, a solid yes, straight away for me. I I do a lot. I'm an avid online shopper. I find it very, very useful when they recommend things that are similar but not the same, right? Because I think old recommender systems, if we think way back, you would like buy one thing and forever and a day it would recommend you exactly the same thing but in many different forms, and you kind of like, well, I already have it, like I've bought it now, I don't need another one of it, sort of thing. Whereas I think recommender systems have got a lot better. I think we've been thinking more about the explore versus exploit type pieces in recommenders. And yeah, I think it can, when there's so much as well. So this is interesting because often recommenders are very useful and we have a lot of data that a human, we can't, necessarily get through efficiently. And recommenders are always a great place to actually be able to, I don't know, filter out a little bit just the huge amount of different online clothing options that are available.
Yeah, I'd be a resounding yes on this one. I'm a creature of habit. And so like, I think I've worn the same developer hoodie, obviously I wash it and I have multiple developer hoodies, but I tend to pick the same things to wear over and over again. And so something like that would help me to step out of my comfort zone and maybe discover something I didn't think was, possible or with that. All right, let's keep going, just perhaps a little more controversial. Here we go. Secure your house with cameras.
So I do have a doorbell that has a camera. It's very, very useful when I used to travel a lot and when I wouldn't be working at home the whole time. Like the front door's literally here, so it's less useful now. But yeah, when we're out, it's very useful. We had a security system as well. Again, put your mind at ease. When you're away from the home, you can just double check everything's kind of going okay in there. It's a well depends. I think I have a lot more questions. Yeah, for this one, I'd have more questions about what is the AI element of it? Does it need one? I mean, is it just storing of data? And then if so, what's the principles or the policies around it? How do I get access to it? So I think I would just have more questions of this one.
Yeah, this is one where I actually differ very slightly. Like I have closed circuit cameras at my house, but I don't have them internet connected. And I thought about this, and I was talking with my partner about this as well. And we were trying to decide, goodness, do we want the system that has it on our phone, or is it okay to have it like just wired to our TV? Turns out that, we've only needed it for spotting wildlife. I live out in the country, again, plant geek. And so we've seen deer go by, and we even had a black bear about 4 years ago as well. We caught it on camera, but we wanted to share it with people. Like, oh, if it was AI connected, then we would have been able just to hit the share button in that. So I don't know, maybe we should have. Okay. We'll do a couple more and then we'll bridge. So I'm going to get to some more kind of real interesting ones. How about dispensing medication by your hospital bed? Another one that's a little bit about, is it AI enabled or not?
Yeah. So I've never had to be in this scenario. So this would be something very new for me. So immediately I think I feel that slight concern. I am quite pessimistic. I come across very, very positive type of person on camera. I'm actually quite pessimistic sometimes. But would I? I'm gonna say, why does it have to be done automatically? And again, just many questions about override capability. If it's dispensing medication, again, my pessimistic side immediately goes to, well, what if it does too much? What if it does too little? What if time zones or changing of clocks and times messes it up or something like that? We all know the millennium bug, etc. Way back when. Working our time zones is hard as well. We have to do it on a daily basis. But so many questions. And I think because it's not something that I have had to address up until this question live on a live stream, then it's very hard to make that immediate yes/no decision. And I think it's kind of natural to go to no. I think I might choose no over yes before I get more information, which is interesting.
Yeah. I was thinking more about some engineering scenarios around trust. Where is it a system that is only isolated to the group of nurses and doctors that are that sort? Is it internet connected, but that internet is an intranet? It kind of depends. Obviously, we have this currently through IV drips or things like that, but it's a system. It's a PC that's basically people wheel out next to the hospital bed and that. And so we do have this. So interesting thoughts there. Again, share your thoughts, everyone out there in the community. All right, let's get to some even more controversial ones. Let's call it select the best qualified candidate for the job.
Not for me, because I'm such a people person. Like, I think it's really important to have that opportunity as a candidate to bring across your best self, give your fun stories, give your character. I think character brings life to teams. So for me, I think it's a no. What about you, Justin?
I think that I definitely lean more on no, because it's so important for me to see a human share what she or he or they are interested in and their qualifications and their story. I care about story. It's storylines, and that thing is very important to me. I do recognize that, there's a lot of people and that we have to make trade-offs, and there are minimum qualifications. And so I kind of think that there's probably some tier, but if I were to err more on more versus less on this one, I think I do err a little bit, less. I'd rather, I'd rather spend more time, my own time, getting to know people and learning about their stories, even if, maybe it isn't the right fit in that as well. But yeah, everyone's different. All right, I'll just do a couple more and then we'll bridge. Here's one that I've really thought about over the weekend. Write and publish newspaper articles. This is certainly something that's happening a lot more lately.
Write and publish newspaper articles. So my main concern, I think, whenever you're looking for a news outlet, right, you're looking, hopefully, we were all taught at school, look for good sources of information. Also look for different sources of information. It's always good to see different perspectives on a topic and then be able to make your own leanings and decisions in some senses. Write and publish newspaper articles, because then I'm thinking, could it be quite good for breaking news in some senses, because you've only got some facts maybe when news is breaking, or like a small amount of information needs to get out there fast. But I think writing also has an element of art form to it. I think some people are incredible at writing. We all know the books that we love, that we can just absolute page turners, the way they're written just works for us. Or we all choose. I think sometimes having a lot of news articles are about people, and so realistically, the question saying, should we have people writing about people, sort of thing, because they get them, or they at least can hopefully empathize, sort of thing. Very difficult one. I think I like your thing, but from before, you almost had a radar, you were almost saying, where you were less or more in this area. I'd maybe say, as you said, for efficiency purposes, maybe there's something, maybe it's more about finding articles that could have a lot of AI involved, over the possible writing of it, but we know that it is possible. So the question is saying, just because we can, should we?
Should we? Yes, and I think that's a real key part of building trust in AI. Should we do this as well? Yeah, for newspaper articles, for me, I mean, there are certain things that are transactional, stock prices or weather or things like that. But I think where I have an opinion on this one is that for our algorithms, that is the way that we prioritize information. I feel like we should prioritize journalism that humans have made, perhaps higher in the news feed or more on the front page or things like that. But for people who are seeking information, like what is the weather or stock prices or things like that, I think I'd be okay with a little AI-infused writing. But yeah, it comes back to the human part for me: creativity, journalism, respecting the craft and such. But everyone differs, and that's what is really key to this as well. So of course I've got other examples, but let's keep going. I'll let you think about ones around, autopilot, a jet, or, drive your car for you. Those are certainly things of the moment as well. But let's keep going forward. And particularly, Amy, you recently wrote a blog post really talking about some of your experiences with trust in AI and fairness and things like that. And so would you share with us maybe a little bit more about what you learned there?
Of course. Yeah, no, I wrote this blog post. So interestingly, I I've been in the machine learning space for quite a while, and I focused very technically at the start. It was all about the technical. It was all about what we're building, how we're building it, what's the latest cutting edge. And then I was at a machine learning conference, and I saw this amazing keynote, and we'll talk more about that very, very shortly. Yeah. And it was one of these ones where I really got into reading more about and trying to understand more about ethical AI, so ethical uses of AI. And then as I was looking through, you hear like a lot of negative. There's a lot of areas where we've not done well in technology, and hopefully we're learning from them rapidly, which is great. There's always a silver lining to this, as long as we're learning from our mistakes quickly. But the interesting bit was I went to a talk in the Microsoft London Reactor, actually. So this would be way back, maybe early 2019, possibly. And I saw one of our colleagues in the UK, Michael Robson, his name is, look him up, I think he's on LinkedIn. And he did a really, really good talk where he kind of turned it on its head. He said, rather than he was talking about, lots of, here's everything we've done wrong, as someone who creates AI, as someone who tries to build things with AI services, sometimes just the negative side of it can gets me worried. I don't want to. I don't go out of my way to build things that would upset people, harm people, anything like that. And I think, the words assume good intent, it's always the case in my mind. And so I started to be like, gosh, I want some action. I want something that I can say, have I done as much as I can to alleviate any issues I may come across when I do this? And so he talked about a framework that can have a set of questions that you can ask yourself as a team, and this is called the FATE framework, which actually is a team in Microsoft Research, the FATE team, so FATE. And this FATE team talk about fairness, accountability, here we go, transparency, and ethics. And he came up with all these questions below it, which are questions that are in the AI fairness checklist, which is nicely at the bottom just there. And I found this incredibly useful. This was something that I could take action on. If I was thinking about building a project, I could use these 4 pillars as a good starting place to evaluate, actually, is anyone being treated differently? I mean, it's such a broad question, but it does make you properly think about it. Who's accountable? I love that one there. Is there ultimately a human accountable? I think I just mentioned that with the medication one, didn't I? I was like, well, is there an override capability, or, who makes the final decision? As a user, I should probably know that. Is it clear AI is being used? I mean, that is literally the definition of transparency, isn't it? But sometimes we're saying maybe it's not clear that AI is being used. Maybe you do think there's people making decisions behind the scenes, and you're writing something to convince a human, someone who's going to make a decision. And then also on the ethical side of things, is there human monitoring? Is there protections that you can do against unintended behavior? I just thought these questions really made me think. He brought up a phenomenal scenario. Do go check out the blog post. I kind of just break down almost Michael's session. He does a wonderful scenario that's a little bit of a not one you would always think of, and you start asking yourself these questions, and all of a sudden you realize there are things that you have a lot of questions about to actually, in order to use the service. And so this was something I found. I find it incredibly useful to at least start having that conversation, or allow others to evaluate the work that you are doing. So if you and a team of people are working on something, we can all ask ourselves these questions, but I might not, given my background, given my experience, given my current mindset or anything like that, I might not actually think about something that someone else might be affected by. And so testing early as widely as possible and being very transparent about the fact that you're trying new things. That's something for me that was quite important that was shared.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I found this framework incredibly refreshing and interesting. And I think I've spent probably more time on this slide and the underlying AI fairness checklist over the last, I think, couple of years. I've really been kind of thinking about ethics of AI and such. And I think one of the key things, Amy, that you touched on is that, this isn't just about data, or it isn't just about math. It requires people who are domain experts or people who may not be engineers on their day-to-day trade. Although it's certainly important as an engineer to think with this, but consult other people and bring others more into the design and the build and especially the testing processes of AI systems, because these are not only technical in nature. Data science is not only technical, but it's also cultural. It's people. And if we're going to make AI behave more like humans and build trust for humans, then more humans need to be, I think, involved in it as well. And so I think this is great stuff. If you're looking to begin your own AI project, this is a great place, I think, to begin to start asking yourself these questions.
Absolutely. And it's it's definitely something that's kind of driven a lot of the things I think about. I mean, even if I go back to the reality TV kind of piece, some of this stuff is not easy. You're dealing with data about people, and a lot of reality TV shows, they very much look after a lot of their people who are on their shows, but then there also is the element of social media. I started to dive a little bit into the social media side of that show. And it's a difficult area because it's so many people, so many opinions, stuff like that. And this was interesting to kind of possibly look at retrospectively. I think I possibly did that before looking at this, and again, really other projects that you work on. So I think you can look retrospectively, but also we spoke about this a while ago, thinking about ethical AI not as an afterthought. So not, I've built this amazing thing, now let me ask myself, a set of sort of questions to test for evaluating fairness, accountability, transparency, and ethics. But actually a bit like what we say with security, we should be building it in right from the start, because do we have to have a bit of AI in that? Is it really helping? Because actually there's a lot of, gray area around the data, or we know we don't have a good sampling of data or something like that. So I would highly recommend, ask yourself these questions very early on. Ask yourself again and again and again at every stage of the project. I get other people to ask these questions of your project because it really is the crowdsourcing element.
For sure. Yeah, getting other people, asking other people these questions, I think is just the super important part of that. Is I was going to share a story about, so I will occasionally mentor Imagine Cup projects. These are students that are oftentimes building their first or amongst their first projects using AI. A common archetype or solution build is a web application with AI services or a machine learning model, that helps build more intelligence into the application. And so I hand the students this AI fairness checklist, and I say, answer these questions for yourself, but more importantly, as you start to roll this out and prototype it, ask your user these questions and see what they respond, and then reevaluate your AI based on that as well. Daniel asked a really good question. I'll spend time because it's very pertinent here. Daniel's asking, are there currently any regulations or laws that prevent companies from using AI unethically or limit the capabilities of the AI? Amy, do you want to take a cut at that one? I've got a couple ideas as well.
I was going to say, I don't think it's something I've looked into personally. It's a great question. It's a very, very, very good question. Again, laws and regulations don't always span borders. So sometimes we probably have to think of laws and regulations that, think about something like GDPR that relates to, European data protection and stuff like that. That's an interesting one. And Microsoft's got amazing white papers on how they deal with that kind of stuff across the world, so everyone gets that level of option around data capability. But yeah, Justin, do you have anything that comes to mind immediately for that one?
Yeah, I looked at this a little while back, and I'm certainly not an expert in the area, so I really would encourage everyone to check out what are laws and regulations that apply to your country, as well as increasingly more consensus that's being developed in the data science and AI communities. I would say from my learning thus far, there are not universally agreed upon regulations yet. There are some countries or other, like the European Commission and others, that are starting to agree on generally accepted practices. Amy, you mentioned GDPR as data privacy and protection of data is one that I think about as an engineer here at Microsoft. I know there are other ones that we also strive to comply to and make sure that we are following that. I tend to think of it also as not only just regulations and laws, but what is the right thing to do, and can we be thought leaders and help partner with governments and organizations and working groups to move regulation and laws of ethical AI forward as well. So please check it out more. It's a really meaty topic. I bet we could do a whole episode or maybe even a thesis on that alone. But certainly a good one and something I believe personally that we should be doing more as well.
Yeah, interestingly, just a quick one to Daniel. He might want to just go check out the AI Now Institute. So AI, sorry, I was just Googling in the background, just there, AINowInstitute.org. It's part of New York University. Something we're going to talk about in a minute. Someone's involved, and this is where I know it's come from. And they actually do each year, they do like a summary of AI, ethical AI within that year. And interestingly, I remember reading one of their reports, and they talk a lot about this and some of the strides that they're making across the world. And so I bet the latest one, I don't know, I think it normally comes out at the end of the year, so I'm sure we'll be expecting one soon. I can't believe we're in November already. But there's one every single year, so it'd be interesting to read 2020 and then await the next one that comes out. But they really talk about everything, not just the technical side of it, but also the social side of it, the economic side of it, etc. So that would be a really great place to look. Actually, that definitely triggered my thought process there.
For sure. Well, awesome. Let's keep going. And I wanted to kind of also then just expand a little bit more to some of the underlying elements of ethics in AI. And that comes really when it comes down to the data side as well. You're welcome, Daniel. Thanks for asking questions. Please, everyone, feel free to share. But I want to really talk about, Amy, from your experience, how have you overcome, underlying biases in data from the preparation of that to the discovery of the models, to the testing of models, and what have been some inspirations for you as you've pursued that as well?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, the first things first, there's no one thing in some senses. I wish, right? Don't you wish there was just like a package
for
that
sure,
sits in a tool and it just cleans your data? But interestingly, that was something that I learned quite early on is not something that's currently available, and possibly won't be because of the many sides there are to something like bias in AI and bias in data. Inspiration wise, I have a one-stop shop. That's just the place to go to get you started, which I was very, very lucky back in 2017. I can't believe it was this long ago. Back in 2017, I got to go to what is now called the NeurIPS conference, was called NIPS before, was hosted in LA. I got to go there for a few days to just deep dive into some of the latest and greatest. Again, went to these amazing reinforcement learning talks, went to great stuff around natural language processing, and we're seeing amazing strides in both those areas even now. And so this was like very, very heavy, very research-based kind of stuff. So, I'm like 2 days in or whatever, my brain is very, very full. And I go to this keynote. This keynote was by a lady named Kate Crawford. She used to work for Microsoft Research along with her colleague, Hannah Wallach. They're two of just the people in this space that I just find fascinating. They've been in this area. They've been doing this amazing research for so long. There's a link just on this slide here called The Trouble with Bias. And that was Kate's keynote speech. It's available just online. You can go and watch it. And I actually rewatched it over the weekend, ready for this session. And just straight away, again, just was like, it's such a good breakdown of not just what are we doing right now, but the history of where we've come from, the why behind why we make some of these errors potentially within the space of AI, but also some interesting ideas of what we can do to move forward. And this definitely inspired me. And it didn't just inspire me to say, okay, well, now I've listened to this talk, now I know enough. I won't have biased data anymore. No, it was more of a drive to actually say, keep reading, keep looking at all the different scenarios. We all learn from experience, and the irony of that is so does machine learning. But the interesting idea is there is always more to see. People will keep breaking boundaries, will keep finding out interesting ways to deal with bias in data. There are some things that relate to technical things that we can do. There's things that relate to more considerations like the questions from the freight framework that we can ask ourselves. A lot of them you will start asking yourself about the data as well as the actual problem you're trying to solve. And so, I would definitely say this is something, it makes you really think. Like anytime I now come across a data set and it has anything like gender or postcode or area, or sorry, postcode's a UK thing, a specific state or area that you live in, and immediately it like catches you and you're like, oh, okay, like I should go and look at the skews in this data. I should go and look at the patterns before I do anything to put it into some kind of automation or model.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I had a chance to listen to Kate's keynote. Amy, after you introduced it to me, I had not discovered this particular resource. And I think one of the things that resonated with me about it was that Kate talked about biases of allocation and biases of representation. And those words really stuck with me. And I think especially as we played the Would You Trust AI game earlier, one of the things that I observed is that, potential biases of allocation, and again, I'm paraphrasing a little bit of Kate's words in this though, is that they are more transactional in nature. And so, we can, if data is more transactional, we can do things to mitigate bias through allocation of resources. That includes removing data where it isn't necessary, anonymizing data, but also inviting people to participate more in it. But representation is much harder. It's much more contextual. And so as we got down that list more, I think we were starting to get into some areas of potential representational risk. And that's when you started saying maybe no, or maybe it depends, or things like that, as well.
Yeah. One interesting that relates more to representational risk than allocation is, so just an example out there, because those words can sometimes feel a little overloaded.
Yeah, that's true.
I always use the natural language processing scenario. So Kate uses a wonderful example, and I do use it because it's just so good, and I always credit her for this great demo. If you go to any kind of translate type technology, one of the things about translating language, and some of the reason we're so good at it is when we have a lot of data from a language. If we don't have a lot of data for a language, then we might not have the same kind of accuracy across all different sort of pairs of languages together, which is interesting. And she gives the example of he is a nurse, she is a doctor. She translates them into Turkish, which I didn't realize is actually a neutral language. It doesn't have gender pronouns like we have he and she and stuff like that. And then if you do it back the other way, so you translate from Turkish it back into English, it then comes up and it swaps them back. So they go back to she is a nurse and he is a doctor. But it's a representational thing, right? From a historical piece, it's the data, the legacy or the historical data that we're learning from. I was doing a good example with she is a developer, because I am a technical person, so I do she is a developer, and the same thing happens. It changes back to he is a developer. However, very, very interesting. I started to do this demo more and more like over time, and it changed. So a UI was actually able to then offer both. So because it knew it was going to offer multiple pronouns, it actually said, which one are you looking for? And it listed off a set of different ones. And I was like, very, very interesting way to look at it, right? It wasn't, I don't know the inner workings behind it. I don't think it was fixing the data. What it was fixing was the UI, was the way that the information is passed back to us, to users. I just thought that was fascinating. I was like, oh, interesting, because it's a form of progress, right? It's something that made me feel a lot better anyway. Every time I saw it translate back to he as a developer, I was like, no.
Yeah, and what is interesting about that is how the engineers who were working on that potentially could have solved that problem through different means. Like in this case, you talk about a UX context that says, did you mean this pronoun, or how do you want to identify from, as a personal pronoun and such. It could also be solved or mitigated in part through underlying data, or it could be, you mentioned Turkish is a gender neutral language, which I'm not an expert in Turkish, but
no, neither am I. Just from the example,
like is gender required to assign meaning to the noun in this case? And I can't answer that question. There's many different languages out there, but these are the problems and also opportunities, I think, that we have. One of the things I think that is awesome about AI is that it is driving a lot more awareness of inclusivity because of the scale aspect of it. We can, as humans, we can no longer afford just to be in our own language and our own culture, but in some cases, AI prompts us to go and explore cultures or points of view that that may not be our own, or we may not be exposed to. Speaking for myself in that I've been on a journey like that as well. And so one of the many reasons why I love this topic, despite the challenges, despite concerns and high-profile scenarios where AI systems have made mistakes, I do believe it is an opportunity for humans, and that we can be more productive and creative through that as well. Well, we have just a couple more minutes, Amy. Why don't we begin or just finish off with a little bit of an applied question here. Like, for all of us, whether we're an entrepreneur or developer or founder or just a student learning, what would be your advice for people who are looking to get more involved in building AI solutions?
Yeah, it's a really difficult one. For those who want to build on the technical side, what I'd like to just break it up very slightly. For those who want to build on the technical side, I can't recommend more to go, because we have a lot of services now available. We have AI in a box, if we'd almost like to call it that you can use, and it's amazing because you don't want to have to maintain sentiment analysis algorithms anymore, because the quality bar is so high, and you can just use it, and it's a nice type of piece of technology to be able to use, a service to be able to use, and not have to manage it, which is very, very difficult. It's hard to manage a machine learning algorithm. And so I would also, though, encourage you to take a look at the theory behind what's happening. So what is sentiment analysis? How might it be working on a data to data kind of basis?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I, way back when I first started working in the space of sort of machine learning back in academia, and actually when I was an intern here at Microsoft, I took a course. It was a Coursera course. It's the very, very famous Andrew Ng machine learning course. Still to this day, it is just fantastic. The way he describes it is phenomenal. It is difficult. Like, it is not easy watching. It's not something you do with your email at the same time. You got to give it full focus. It's hard work, but it really gives you that good understanding of what it's doing underneath. And then when you're asking questions like all of these data questions, these bias questions, these more ethical questions, understanding how it works, I think, is very, very key to be understanding why it might be making errors or why it might be making decisions that it is. So that's kind of on the technical side. And then for everyone, and it kind of continues to span in some senses, it's not really a, one set of people, another set of people sort of thing. Just keep reading. That's been something within the ethical AI space that I find interesting, because this space is moving so quickly as well. There are new examples, there are new papers and research topics, so many people working in this area. If you read more about it and you kind of take it in, Medium is a great place to look. Dev2 is a great place to look for these types of blog posts. Any technical provider is going to have a responsible AI part of their sort of web estate. We certainly do as Microsoft, which is responsible AI, and it's got lots of great advice. And so I'd say just a lot of reading, a lot of informing. It doesn't have to be technical, but it can make you understand not just what's possible, because not everything's possible. Then it's not unicorn, but also don't underestimate what it can do as well. Yeah, and I think from my perspective too, particularly if you are a person who doesn't code on a day-to-day basis, or you are not an engineer by trade and you work with engineers, you have something to contribute in the field of AI, and it's not only your own perspective, but it's your own expertise. If you're going to build an AI system for marathon runners, and if you want to involve marathoners in your AI system, that's incredibly important. And if you are going to build household security cameras or doorbells, you want to test users that have big doors, small doors, for all around the world, internet connections that may not be fast. And so all of these contextual things are just so very, very important. So do your part to help us build ethical AI, even if you're joining a user group or user study for your favorite app, or you are working with a team of engineers. There is something for all people, in my opinion, to participate in AI. So there's some great links here on the slide. Microsoft has a whole bunch of tools that help us and help you in the community build with fair AI in mind. You can find that at aka.ms.
Microsoft Fair AI tools. Of course, we have some practices for responsible AI if you want to learn a little bit more about that and take the Microsoft learning path. And of course, check out Amy's and Hank's show, A Bit of AI. It's a great one. I really enjoy watching it as well. And yeah, and then finally, this is just the beginning for this Just In. We have at least 6 more episodes coming up. You can see the calendar there, but be sure to sign up, whether it be on Meetup or the Microsoft Reactor website. So, Amy, thank you so much for being our first guest. I really appreciate it. And it was good chatting with you about the differences of AI and how it kind of depends. It's contextual.
Always contextual. Well, it depends is the biggest term used in tech, I think, isn't it? It used to be for an architect, more an architect role, but now it's for everyone. Well, it depends. No, really appreciate Justin. Thank you for having me on the show. Thank you for going through. I sent Justin so many resources, I think, in the end. I was like, oh, you should check out this. You should check out this. Thank you for going through them all, and we can have this awesome conversation. And yeah, hopefully all of our viewers were able to, take that away. Do share with us also. I'm sharing, this is very personal, I'm sharing a lot of stuff that I've really enjoyed. You might have things out there that you enjoy. Share them back with us. Keep in touch, because that's how we all learn together.
Absolutely. Yep. You can find Amy and I on Twitter or also LinkedIn. We have our handles there as well. So again, thank you all for attending this Just In. This is just great. And we will see you next week.